The movie opens in Paris, where the assassin, known as the Paris Killer, is renowned for his impeccable track record, never once slipping up. For his latest assignment, he rents an office directly across from a hotel, strategically positioned to observe the surroundings and monitor his target. A man of unyielding discipline, the killer lives by a rigid code, ensuring that he never strays from the law. He understands that even the slightest misstep could expose his identity and tarnish his legendary reputation. The killer is meticulous, leaving no trace, no fingerprints, no DNA, aware that even the smallest error could lead to his downfall. After 5 days of silent surveillance with no significant progress, he contacts his handler, prepared to retreat. However, the handler urges him to hold on just a little longer. Reluctantly, he agreed to extend his surveillance for another 2 days. That evening, as he silently prepared his weapons, he heard footsteps drawing near. Instantly on edge, he braced for action only to find it was a courier. Wordlessly, the messenger set an envelope on the floor before swiftly leaving. Later that night, he was abruptly roused, his attention immediately drawn to movement in the top floor room. Recognizing that his target had finally arrived, he swiftly positioned his rifle, ready to take the perfect shot. With methodical precision, he accounted for every detail: the angle, wind speed, and every variable that could influence the bullet's trajectory. Everything appeared perfectly aligned for a flawless execution. Yet, when he pulled the trigger, the shot veered off course, hitting the woman beside his target instead. Realizing the situation had unraveled, he quickly erased any trace of his presence and made a swift exit. Heading straight for the airport, he left behind a trail of irreversible chaos. In a rush to leave the office building, he meticulously wiped away any trace that could tie him to the scene. As he departed Paris, the killer called his handler to report the mission's failure. The handler warned him of possible consequences, but the killer remained unshaken. Calmly, he assured them that he would handle the situation promptly. Yet, as he scanned his surroundings, he spotted a suspicious figure lingering nearby. His instincts warned him that the figure might be a mercenary sent to eliminate him. The palpable sense of danger heightened his awareness, and he braced himself for whatever might come. The killer rented a hotel room near the airport, preparing to face the uninvited guest. To secure his safety, he devised a simple but effective alarm system: a glass on the doorknob and a metal plate at the door's base to detect any movement. Knife in hand, he sat in tense silence, waiting. By midnight, he realized his error. The stranger was simply an innocent traveler. The next morning, the killer checked out of the hotel and flew to a safe house in the Dominican Republic. Upon arrival, he immediately noticed cigarette butts and unfamiliar footprints, clear signs that someone had been there before him. The instant the killer discovered the break-in, he grabbed his weapon and slipped inside, moving like a ghost in the dark. The house was a war zone: furniture upended, broken dishes scattered across the floor, and bloodstains marring the walls. A cold wave of dread washed over him. Then the call came, freezing him in place. His girlfriend was in the hospital. He rushed to her side, only to be confronted by Marcus, her relative, who delivered the harrowing news. 2 strangers had come for him, but found her instead. They tortured her mercilessly, demanding answers she refused to give. Despite the excruciating pain, she never betrayed him. In a final act of defiance, she seized an opportunity, twisting free just enough to drive a blade into one of the attackers' legs, forcing them to flee. After speaking with his girlfriend and piecing together the grim details, the killer made sure she received the best medical care, slipping the doctors a generous sum to ensure it. Back at his house, he unearthed a hidden chest. Inside were forged documents, stacks of cash, and an arsenal of weapons. The vivid memories of her torment burned in his mind, igniting an insatiable hunger for vengeance. His first lead came from a simple clue: the criminals had arrived in a green taxi. Clinging to that thread, he launched his pursuit. It wasn't long before he traced the vehicle to a transportation company that specialized in green taxis. With unwavering patience and chilling precision, he zeroed in on the driver who had transported them. Step by step, methodical and relentless, he closed in on his target, leaving no detail overlooked. Under the cover of darkness, the killer infiltrated the administrative building, sifting through records until he uncovered the taxi driver's identity, Leo Rodriguez. Armed with this information, he began his pursuit, quietly tracking Leo's every move, biding his time for the perfect moment to strike. When it arrived, he slipped into Leo's taxi undetected and waited in silence. As Leo slid into the driver's seat, he was met with the chilling press of cold steel against his temple. Paralyzed with fear, Leo had no choice but to obey. Under the assassin's cold, unyielding stare, he stammered out everything he knew about the man and woman he had driven the day before. His hands shook on the wheel as the truth sank in. This was no ordinary man. This was a predator, ruthless and unrelenting, willing to do whatever it took to get the answers he demanded. Frozen with fear, the driver followed every order, his hands trembling as he confessed he had picked up the two individuals from the airport. That was all the killer needed. Without a second thought, he took the driver down, leaving no trace behind, then melted into the shadows. His next stop, New Orleans. Upon arrival, he rented a white truck and headed straight for one of his hidden safe houses. Inside, he accessed a secure storage unit, unveiling an arsenal of fake license plates, firearms, and ammunition, all meticulously organized and ready for this moment. With clinical precision, he began preparing for what lay ahead. At dawn, he visited a hardware store, picking up a pneumatic nail gun, a trash can, and other necessary tools. Once everything was in place, he set off toward Dolores's building, driving downtown with purpose. The security was lax, which worked to his advantage, just a single camera at the entrance, allowing him to slip in unnoticed with ease. He waited patiently for the courier's arrival, blending seamlessly into the surroundings, disguised as a doorman. As soon as the courier entered, he timed his move flawlessly, slipping through the closing door without a sound. Inside, he stayed poised, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. With swift precision, he drew his gun and aimed it at the secretary, his cold gaze making it clear there was no room for defiance. Paralyzed by fear, she had no choice but to comply. As soon as the courier left, the killer moved quickly, slipping into the office of lawyer Hodge, his handler. Without a moment's hesitation, he ordered Hodge and his assistant to be restrained, then methodically destroyed every computer and tablet in sight, erasing all traces of data. Fixing his gaze on Hodge, the killer demanded the identities of his clients. But the handler remained unyielding, refusing to reveal a single name. Instead, he met the killer's stare with a cold, knowing look and delivered a chilling reminder his mistake was unforgivable, and the consequences were unavoidable. No one would offer him absolution, Hodge warned. The only option left was confession, the one chance at redemption in a world that would never forget. Without hesitation, the killer raised the nail gun and fired, driving a nail deep into Hodge's chest. His voice was cold, his demand unwavering. He wanted a name. He gave Hodge only minutes to respond, but before the lawyer could utter a word, his life faded away in silence. Dolores, watching the inevitable unfold, understood there was no escape. She met the killer's gaze with quiet resignation, silently pleading for a swift and painless end. If nothing else, Dolores hoped her death would secure the life insurance she had arranged for her children, a final act of protection in a fate she could no longer escape. The killer didn't hesitate. He granted her request, not out of mercy, but because she held the key to what he needed. She alone knew the identity of the client responsible for his girlfriend's suffering. Her life was a price he was willing to pay to reach his goal. With the deed done, the killer and the secretary silently exited the office building, disappearing into the night. Their destination, her house. The next phase of his meticulously planned execution was about to unfold. After disposing of the lawyer's body in the trash, he returned to find Dolores frantically attempting to escape. But with her hands bound tightly, freedom was impossible. She remained firmly under his control. Resigned to her fate, she surrendered, divulging the critical details that pointed to a client in Chicago. Once he had the information, the killer moved without hesitation. In a swift, practiced motion, he twisted her neck and sent her tumbling down the stairs, meticulously staging the scene to appear as a tragic accident. His work was flawless, no loose ends, no second chances. The killer carefully erased every trace, wiping away all evidence including the lawyer's body until nothing remained. A few days later, he turned his focus to Florida, intent on hunting down his first target, a man known as Brute. After scouting Brute's house, he examined every detail with cold precision. The man wasn't alone, he had guests, and more troublingly, a fierce guard dog that would need to be neutralized. Without wasting a moment, the killer made a quick stop at a nearby grocery store, purchasing ground beef and sleeping pills. With his plan set into motion, he returned to Brute's house, prepared to carry out the next phase of his mission. That evening, Brute joined a group of thieves at a casino, where they reveled in a night of gambling, eager to blow some of their stolen earnings. Hours later, he left the group and headed home alone, exactly the opening the killer had been waiting for. Moving with meticulous precision, the killer first neutralized the guard dog, tossing it ground beef laced with sleeping pills. Within minutes, the once ferocious animal lay still, deep in a drugged sleep. With the immediate threat gone, the killer slipped inside the building, his every movement calculated and silent. He knew exactly where Brute was inside the bathroom. The hunt was almost over. The moment the killer entered, Brute lunged at him, thinking he was a daring thief. A brutal struggle ensued, both men fighting with raw, relentless strength. But the killer wasn't interested in prolonging the confrontation. This was just the beginning of his revenge. As he slipped out of the house, a new threat emerged. The dog had woken. Its furious growls a promise to tear apart the intruder who dared trespass. Narrowly evading the beast, the killer wasted no time. He hurled a Molotov cocktail through the window, watching as the flames erupted, devouring every trace of his presence. His work here was finished. With his next target waiting in New York, he moved quickly, buying a standard ticket, washing away any remnants of blood in a cold shower, and gearing up for the next phase of his relentless pursuit. The killer rented a nondescript car, blending effortlessly into the city's landscape, as he headed toward the home of the specialist, the woman involved in the attack on his girlfriend. Armed with forged documents and a false identity, he had no idea what she looked like. So, he waited. His patience was rewarded when a blonde woman appeared. Fixing his gaze on his target, he followed her through the streets, maintaining his distance until they reached a traffic light. It was the perfect moment. His hand hovered over his weapon, poised to strike. But something held him back. Instead of pulling the trigger, he decided on a different course of action. He let her go, following her to a restaurant where they would meet face to face. The specialist's blood ran cold when she recognized him, the relentless killer seeking vengeance for the crimes she had once defended. Fear gripped her throat, but she quickly masked it, scrambling to find an excuse. She spoke of orders she couldn't refuse, of circumstances beyond her control. But the killer remained unmoved. Mercy wasn't in his nature, and forgiveness was a distant thought. Though he didn't fully trust her, he played along, accepting her offer for a drink before casually suggesting a walk. A chill ran through her as the realization hit her days were numbered. With death looming just beyond the horizon, every breath, every step, every heartbeat became a painfully fleeting moment. She clung to one final hope, that the killer would choose a place of beauty for her death, offering her a shred of dignity in her tragic end. Desperation drove her to make one last attempt, a futile effort to lure him into a trap. But he was quicker. Before she could make a move, a single gunshot rang out, ending her life in an instant. With her death, the killer uncovered the true mastermind behind it all, Mr. Claiborne, a billionaire living in a heavily guarded estate in Chicago. Without hesitation, he headed for the city, methodically tracking his target's every move. Upon infiltrating the underground parking garage, he encountered an electronic lock blocking his path, just another obstacle, another layer of security to overcome. For the killer, it was nothing more than the prelude to what lay ahead. He swiftly acquired a duplicate keycard and secured a membership at the billionaire's gym, seamlessly integrating himself into the daily rhythm of Claiborne's inner circle. To ensure a flawless operation, he acquired a brand new, untraceable firearm never before used after discreetly transferring funds into a separate account. He had already obtained a duplicate keycard and secured a gym membership at the billionaire's private facility, ensuring he could move undetected. To eliminate any traceable connections, he set his plan into motion. He quietly accessed the security guard's locker at the gym, swiping the card to gain unrestricted entry. As the other members remained engrossed in their workouts, he silently slipped away, heading back to Claiborne's estate to carry out the next phase of his mission. When the killer finally confronted the billionaire and demanded answers, the truth took an unexpected turn. The billionaire confessed that he had no direct role in the events that had unfolded. He had been hired to eliminate a rival businessman, a job he took on without hesitation, unaware of the far-reaching consequences. When the sniper failed to take out the target, the lawyer had insisted on extra payment to erase all traces of the operation. As the killer listened, it became clear that the man before him was not the mastermind he had been tracking. There was no deceit in his words, no ulterior motive, just a wealthy man ensnared in a game he thought he controlled. Realizing that this was not the person truly responsible for his girlfriend's suffering, the killer made his choice. He would spare the billionaire's life. His vengeance was far from over, and the real culprit still remained at large. Before leaving, the killer issued a final warning to Claiborne: if he ever attempts to track him down or seek revenge, there would be no mercy next time. With that, he disappears from Chicago, retreating to his safe house to eliminate any remaining evidence of his mission. In the final scene, his girlfriend is discharged from the hospital, and the two of them escape to a tranquil beach, finally finding a moment of peace after the turmoil. As the waves crash against the shore and the sun sets, the story draws to a close. Thank you for watching. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future summaries. Until next time, take care and have a wonderful day.